poor, and the Lord and Master of the resolute. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet, the famous spell of the free world. We shelter to lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Guru Charana Padama Kevala Bhakti Sadama. Shri Guru Charana Padama Kevala Bhakti Sadama. Bandhamui Sabodana Nate Bandhamui Sabodana Nate Jara prasade bhai ebhavatori aja. Jara prasade bhai ebhavatori aja. Krishna prapti ho jaha hote. Krishna prapti ajahate. Guru mukha padama vakya vichete koriyakya. Guru mukha padama vakya itete koriyakya. Arana koriho mane asya. Arana kariha mane asya. Shri Guru Charana Rati Esa Uttamagati. Shri Guru Charana Rati Esa Uttamagati. Jai prasade pure sarva acha. Jai prasade pure sarva acha. Dakudan dilo ye janme janme Prabhu se. Dakudan dilo ye janme janme Prabhu se. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. Prema Bhakti Jate Vidya Vinasa Jate. Prema Bhakti Jate Vidya Vinasa Jate. Mere Gaja Harturita. Mere Gaja Harturita. Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu. Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu. Lokana Tukara Jidhana. Lokana Tukara Jidhana. Ha Prabhu Karada Deho More Bharachaya. Ha Prabhu Karada Deho More Bharachaya. Eve Jas Dushti Bhuvana. Eve Jas Dushti Bhuvana. Aha Prabhu Karadaya Deha Mori Padachaya. Aha Prabhu Karadaya Deha Mori Padachaya. Aha Prabhu Karadaya Deho More Bharachaya. Aha Prabhu Karadaya Deho More Bharachaya. Eve Jas Dushti Bhuvana. Ila Prabhupada Kodita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Oh Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravai Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Sutarine Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Sutarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Anita Goranga, 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 Anita Goranga. Anita Gauranga Gaura Hare Nita Gauranga Gaura Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Shama Sundara Hare Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Anita Gaur Hariva 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 Gaura Hariva Anita Gaur Hariva 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 Gaura Hariva Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotarashta Shishya Maresi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotarashta Shishya Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Gauri Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गिरिधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय रमनवेती धाम की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय यमुना माई की जय गंगा माई की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय Nitai Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Gaurango.
Hare Krishna. So I'm going to read a little from the new edition of Back to Godhead magazine on newsstands now. If you do not have one and you'd like one, they're in the gift shop at the temple. You can also get a subscription to Back to Godhead. Make it easy on yourself. Just call Krishna.com. They can do it over the phone. Okay, this is a letter to the editor. I love these letters. They're so answered so brilliantly. I love it. Here's the question. When all things go well, then our spiritual life also goes well. But why is our spiritual life hampered when we fall into some material difficulties? The age-old question. Here's the answer. Even if we've taken to the process of Krishna consciousness, we still have to face the consequences of our previous actions. We still suffer difficulties because of karma. It's important for aspiring devotees to have the right attitude in the face of difficulties. As Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to Bhagavad Gita 12:13-14, whenever a devotee is in distress or has fallen into difficulty, he thinks that it is the Lord's mercy upon him. He thinks, thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. I am just getting a little by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I should think that any difficulties Krishna is sending my way are for my spiritual benefit. Maybe you've heard this principle but are having a hard time understanding it. Difficulties seem to make spiritual life more difficult. You wonder, so how is that helpful? There are many possible answers. One is that we can make spiritual progress just by acknowledging that the difficulties are Krishna sent, because seeing Krishna in everything is an important aspect of Krishna consciousness. Material difficulties can also inspire us to become more serious about Krishna consciousness so we can leave this material world forever. Difficulties that seem to hinder our spiritual practices can in fact strengthen our desire for our spiritual practices, and that's purifying. Sometimes hindrances to specific practices can force us to take shelter of other practices. For example, if something in my life makes regular temple attendance difficult, I can look for other ways to increase and improve my chanting and hearing about Krishna. We must have faith that Krishna wants to help us. Difficulties are one way he can get our attention and inspire us to turn to him and cry out, "Dear Lord Krishna, please help." That kind of heartfelt plea is the key to our spiritual progress. It's important to guard against the tendency to resent Krishna for sending difficulties. We should always feel that Krishna loves us more deeply than we can understand, and that he has unlimited intelligence, and that whatever he sends our way is meant to draw us closer to him. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Back to Godhead magazine, putting it in simple, easy to understand form. Okay, hold on. Got it together. Okay, first of all, I want to welcome Prem Kishori Devi Dasi and Ananda Vrindavan Das. Hare Krishna. They're visiting from Connecticut. So we're sorry for this cold weather, but I know it's at least 30 degrees warmer here than it is in Connecticut. So we're trying. Anyway, very nice to have you here just for a little visit. Acharya Ratna Prabhu, who is the husband of Luz Marina. Everybody knows Luz Marina. He is having surgery today, so we ask the devotees to send a little prayer that Lord Krishna will guide the hands of his surgeons and he will have a swift recovery. Also, esta noche a las 6 en la Bhakti Bhavan Ashram de Trasta La Finca, there's programa en español with Bhakti Prabhupada Vrata Damodar Maharaj, so todo el mundo está invitado si tú puedes comprenderme. A las 6. Well, prashadam a las 6. Tal vez. I don't know. It's your program, Maharaj. Okay, Prangovinda Prabhu has lost his eyeglasses. If anyone notices a pair of eyeglasses, could you just turn them into to me or the temple office? These are the devotees who assisted their spiritual master dressing the deities today. Shishi Radha Sham Sundar, Nitai Priya Prabhu, Chota Radha Sham Sundar, Guru Prasad Prabhu, Shishi Krishna Balaram, Jai Gauri Prabhu, Chota Krishna Balaram, Prema Manjari Prabhu, Shishi Gornatai, Devaki Prabhu, Chota Gornatai, Leela Prabhu, Gurus and Lord Nishingadev, Avaduta Natai Prabhu. And Maharaj is giving class today. Yes? Yamaraj, I spoke to him this morning. He actually is there for a test. This is a kind of a routine test. I don't think we're having an emergency, but he did have some high elevated kidney numbers yesterday. So they advised him to go into North Florida General to have this tested. It's it's not an acute condition. And he sounded great and said he feels fine. So I was a little relieved because, when you hear kidney failure, you'd get a little panicked. But he's just going to see the doctor this morning, so we'll know more later.
Kunjabi Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare Gopi Jana Ballava Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Ballava Girivara Dhari Yasodanandana Braja Chanaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Chanaranjana Yamunatihira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayaranta Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Very good. Jayaranta Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Gopijana Ballava Girivara Dhari Gopijana Ballava Girivara Dhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayarada Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Nitya Lila Prabhupada Prabhupada Paramahamsa Pradipakacharya Stotara Sata Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Savior of the World, Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Goti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Sankirtan Jagya ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Go Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I thank everyone for giving me this opportunity, especially the temple management. It's my last opportunity for this visit here in the temple room. I might give a class in Gainesville in Krishna House on tomorrow evening. I think I'd like to do that. You're kindly allowing me to do that. So, I've been advised, as Srila Prabhupada instructed, we're not supposed to put the books on a lap. So I'm going to make a technical arrangement. This is called uttariya, this part of the cloth. And I'll put this here, so please allow me to do that. It's all like it's time and circumstances. Krishna marries 5 princesses, Canto 10, Chapter 58, text 39 to 47. So I guess how we do this is I think we just there are no long purports. I just read through the whole thing, and then we'll come back and make a few comments on certain specific points that come up in the text and the short purports. And then we'll launch into I guess you call it a more philosophical discussion on a particular issue, namely, does God exist? I know that sounds very neophyte for all you great Rasika Bhaktas, but at least it's good for preaching. For me, it's good for me. Subjective or objective. That's another way of putting it. So start with text 39. So what do? We chant in unison, or how does it work? Or do I pick a particular text that we chant together? Is that? Let's just chant it all together now. Ready? Shri Shuka Uvacham Tamaha Bhagavan Dishta Kitashana Parigraham Mega Gambiraya Vacha Sasmitam Kurunandana. Translation. Shukadev Goswami said, O beloved descendant of Kuru, The Supreme Lord was pleased, and after accepting a comfortable seat, he smiled and addressed the king in a voice as deep as the rumbling of a cloud. Text 40. Shri Bhagavan Uvacham Narendra Yachna Kavabir Vigadhita Rajanya Bandurni Jadharma Vartinaham Tatapi Ache Tava Sangrichayam Kanyam Fadiyam Nahi Shukadavayam. Translation. The Supreme Lord said, O ruler of men, learned authorities condemn begging for a person in the royal order who is executing his religious duties. Even so, desiring your friendship, I ask you for your daughter, though we, with a capital W, we offer no gifts in exchange. Interesting. Text 41. Shri Rajovacham Konyaste Vyadiko Nata Kanyavara Ihepshitaham Kanaika Damno Yasyange Shirvarshat Anupayini. The king said, My lord, who could be a better husband for my daughter than you, the exclusive abode of all transcendental qualities? On your body, the goddess of fortune herself resides, never leaving you for any reason. Text 42. Kintvashmabi krita purvam samaya sattva-varshabaham pumsam virya parikshartam kanyavara parikshayam. Kanyavara keeps coming up. Vara is the husband. Okay. Translation 42. But to ascertain the proper husband for my daughter, O chief of the Sattvatas, we previously set a condition to test the prowess of her suitors. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, by the BBT team following Srila Prabhupada. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the king's actual purpose in setting up the test was to obtain Sri Krishna as his son-in-law, since only he could subdue the bulls. The bulls, not the bills. The bulls. Sometimes it's hard to subdue the bills. Grihastas having to pay your rent and all that. The bulls. Without such a test, it would have been difficult for Nagnajit to refuse the many apparently qualified princes and kings who came to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. Text 43. Saptaite go vrishaviram durdanta durdavagraha etair bagni subahavo vina katra nipat majaha. Translation. These 7 wild bulls are impossible to tame, O hero. They have defeated many princes, breaking their limbs. And Kshatriyas, they're very brave. They could see that this is going to be tough, but they go for it anyway. And they get their bones broken and their limbs broken, but they're willing to try. Text 44. Yad ime nagrita shus. Let me try that again. Yad ime nigrita. Okay. Yad ime nigrahita shus. Vayaiva yadunandana. Varo bhavan abhimato duhitur me shriyapati. Translation. If you can subdue them, O descendant of Yadu, you will certainly be the appropriate bridegroom for my daughter, O Lord of Shri. Text 45. Evam samayam akarnya vadva parikaram prabhu atmanam saptada kridva yagri naldi lavayatan. Upon hearing these terms, the Lord tightened his clothing, expanded himself into 7 forms, and easily subdued the bulls. And he kind of cuts to the chase here, just takes care of business. there's a purport, short purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, Lord Krishna expanded himself into 7 forms, not only to playfully defeat the 7 bulls, but also to show Princess Satya that she would not have to compete with his other queens, since he could enjoy with all of them simultaneously. Text 46. Badvatandamapi sardir bhagna darpam hatau jasaham vyakarsha lilaya badan balo daru mayan yata. Lord Shauli tied up the bulls whose pride and strength were now broken and pulled them with ropes, just as a child playfully pulls wooden toy bulls. Text 47. Tataprita satam jam dadao krishnaya vishmitaha tam pratyagrinat bhagavan vidivat sadrishim prabhu. Translation and short purport. Then King Nagnajit, pleased and astonished, presented his daughter to Lord Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead accepted this suitable bride in the proper Vedic fashion. This is called Veda, Vidivat, in the proper Vedic fashion. Purport. The word Satrishim indicates that the lovely princess was a fitting bride for the Lord because she possessed wonderful transcendental qualities that complemented his. In other words, matched. As Srila Jiva Goswami points out, the word Vishmita indicates that King Nagnajit was certainly astonished at the many extraordinary events suddenly taking place in his life. I don't know all the many events, but this is one certainly extraordinary event that we see. What is that word, sadrishim? And the word for word, how is that translated? Sutam Krishnaya Vishmita Tam Padini Bhagavan Vidivat Sadrishim. Compatible. Sadrishim means compatible. That's it. That's the last of the verses. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakrun Militam Yena Tashman Shri Gurve Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. For the voice. So what I would like to present in the time allotted is two aspects, two different styles, you might say. One would be to make a few comments as we go through the verses, and we've already gone through them, but selecting certain points in certain verses and certain purports, make some brief comments, maybe not so brief, reading included. And the other point is to, there was something I wanted to share with you and I forgot to bring it. I'm so sorry. But anyway, I'll try to paraphrase. The other point is then to discuss some arguments that Krishna is not too good to be true. In other words, that there are some compelling reasons, both empirically or by what we see, by evidence and observation, and also logical reasons why it makes a lot of sense that Krishna exists. It's real. This is all real. I know you all know that and you have your realizations, but sometimes it's good to backtrack and just make sure we have that ground covered, At least for preaching, we should be strong theists, I should say. So the basic plan, I like to read one, is to comment on individual verses and purports, then get into theological arguments that wonderful Krishna must and actually does exist. In other words, he's not, quote, too good to be true. So in text 42 and the purport, that's very nice that there's a certain diplomacy here, but a good kind of diplomacy, Krishna-conscious diplomacy. It was a tactic by the king that it may seem that he was kind of like very attached to his family tradition, and he was very proud of his dynasty, and he was maybe acting in a non-devotional way by insisting that, well, I know you'd be great as my son-in-law, but I can't make any exceptions. Even you have to subdue these bulls, because that's our tradition in our family. Something like that. I mean, I remember the first time I read this, I guess in Krishna book, that's what I was thinking. I was saying, he's not so cool, this King Nagnajit. I mean, he's Krishna. You just surrender everything with no conditions. What are you putting conditions? If you're a pure devotee, that's it. Take everything. To everything, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, everything in my house, all my wealth, all my possessions, my house, my family, everything is yours. It's all yours, which is a fact. It's just that he had that realization. So was King Nagnajit falling short? No, it was actually a Krishna-conscious type of tactic. It wasn't just something out of some tradition in his family. He actually planned this. This is probably done some time back, that he set that condition because he knew that these bulls, he just knew none of these kings, none of the great Kshatriyas they may be, but these bulls are just too much, especially 7 of them all together. It's like, it's off the scale. Even the great Kshatriyas, they won't be able to subdue it. The only one who will be able to deal with these is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. You see, there's a lot of sweetness and nectar even if you know that Krishna is God. It's not like completely discounted. Our very fortunate position is to be in a sampradaya, which even goes beyond the divinity or the Godhead of Krishna to his sweetness. So in the Kshatriya culture, there's a lot of diplomacy involved. We have not such a nice example of Duryodhana, although at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, in a couple of purports, in the first chapter, Srila Prabhupada actually, he's not glorifying Duryodhana, but he acknowledges that Duryodhana was a great diplomat. And like he says, Bhavan Bhashmash Chakarnas Cha Kripash Cha Jayatim Shamaham Shamatim Jayaha. Then they're a great soldier, and he puts Bhavan Bhishma, he puts Dronacharya even before Bhishma Dev. This is an example of his diplomacy. And then he says, Bhavan, what is it? Yata Bhagan Avastita. And a little later on he says that you now go, you should all protect Bhishma. You have to protect Bhishma. Bhishmam eva birakshantu bhavanta sarva eva hi. He's telling all the generals, so they shouldn't feel inferior, because the Kshatriyas have their pride. So Duryodhana was very expert. He knew how to motivate his troops. So that's one aspect. Then in text 44, this is interesting. We usually don't hear this, Lord of Shri. It rang a bell. There's our godbrother Tripurari Swami, who's become just as much of the scholar as he was the book distributor before in his earlier phase of his devotional career. And he for years now, he's published a Bhagavad Gita work, and when we hear Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, he translates Lord of Shri, in that particular work. So it kind of rang a bell when I read this. And there's some implications to that, and comes to mind the Bhagavad Gita 2.4.20. Maybe you can help me a little. It's Shriya Patir Jagyapati Prajapati Diyam Pati Loka Patir Darapati. What is it? Gatish Patish Chandrika Vishnu Sattvatam Prashidatame Bhagavan Satam Pati. May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipable Lord of all devotees, the protector and glory of all the kings like Andaka and Vrishni, of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices, and therefore the leader of all living entities, and the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on the earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful upon me. In the first paragraph of the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that Lord Sri Krishna is the sum total of all perfection, the personality of Godhead. Everyone is seeking the favor of the goddess of fortune, but people do not know that Lord Sri Krishna is the beloved husband of all goddesses of fortune. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord, in his transcendental abode, Goloka Vrindavan, is accustomed to herding the Surabhi cows and is served there by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune. All these goddesses of fortune are manifestations of his transcendental pleasure potency, Ladini Shakti, in his internal energy. And when the Lord manifested himself on this earth, he partially displayed the activities of his pleasure potency in his Rasa Lila, just to attract the conditioned souls, who are all after the phantasmagoria, pleasure potency in degraded sex enjoyment. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Sukadeva Goswami, who is completely detached from the abominable sex life of the material world, discussed this act of the Lord's pleasure potency, certainly not in relation to sex, but to relish a transcendental taste inconceivable to the mundaners who are after a sex life. Sex life in the mundane world is the root cause of being conditioned by the shackles of illusion, and certainly Sukadeva Goswami was never interested in the sex life of the mundane world, nor does the manifestation of the Lord's pleasure potency have any connection with such degraded things. Lord Chaitanya was a strict sannyasi, so much so that he did not allow any woman to come near him, not even to bow down and offer respects. He never even heard the prayers of the Devadasis offered in the temple of Jagannath, because the sannyasi is forbidden to hear songs sung by the fair sex. I underlined that when to make a note of that. Yet even in the rigid position of a sannyasi, he recommended the mode of worship preferred by the gopis of Vrindavan as the topmost loving service possible to be rendered to the Lord. As Srimati Radharani is the principal head of all such goddesses of fortune, and therefore she is the pleasure counterpart of the Lord and is non-different from Krishna. Also, we should note that in verse 41, we just heard how the king has already acknowledged that Krishna is the husband of the goddess of fortune. We sing Jayarada Madhava, Madhava, the husband of the goddess of fortune. That he said that the goddess of fortune, who could be a better husband, etc. On your body, the goddess of fortune herself resides, never leaving you for any reason. Even though the goddess of fortune is called Chanchalam, which is another name of our minds, still she's very steady when it comes to Narayan or Lord Vishnu. She always likes to keep her head on the chest of Lord Vishnu. It's a very nice image. Now in text 45, it says, upon hearing these terms, the Lord tightened his clothing, expanded himself into seven forms, and easily subdued the bulls. So we heard some very kind of more confidential insight into why Krishna did that. Remember, we heard that what was the name? Was it Mitravinda? Was it? Is that the name of the princess involved? What? Nagnajiti. Mitravinda was before. So Nagnajiti, she wouldn't have anxiety, apprehension that, wow. In fact, the chapter is called Krishna Marries 5 Princes. And he'll marry a lot more when he rescues all those princes in the cave, and he agrees to marry them all. That was the 16,000. So Nagnajiti wouldn't have anxiety that I'll have so much competition with so many co-wives. Not a problem. You'll each have your own Krishna, so there won't be any competition. It's a nice arrangement. We also hear that in Dwarka, Krishna expanded into 16,108 Krishnas to completely satisfy in every way all these goddesses of fortune, and each in separate palaces too. So, and now in text 45, we're hearing about this expansion. And what we should keep in mind is that this is just a tiny little drop of Yogeshvara. I mean, he's the master of mystics. His mystic potency is unlimited. And we have many examples of this. And one example that comes to mind is in Varanasi, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give his mercy to Prakashananda Saraswati. And I'm not sure if they were all present. Maybe they were. 60,000 sannyasis. Must have been a big assembly hall. At least thousands were present. Mayavadi sannyasis. So he he came to straighten that out, to defeat Prakashananda. But how did he do it? He didn't come in and say, okay, let's have a formal debate. Now, who's the moderator, and the rules of the debate are this, and you say, I say, and then you're going to get smashed by me. He didn't do like that. What did he do? He came and he sat down in the dirty place where you wash your feet. You know, it's not so clean. Like in Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, they have a foot washing place. And you're not going to sit in that. You know, you just wash your feet, wash your mouth even. After taking Charanamrita, we all rinse our mouth, so when we come out there, we've experienced many. So he sat down in this place where they're washing the feet, and it was a lower place, and it just it melted their hearts. And Prakashananda Saraswati himself came forward and extended his hand to say, no, you're such a nice sannyasi. Why are you sitting here? You should come and associate with us, sit with the rest of us. And he said, no, I'm in a lower order of sannyas, Bharati, something. I can, but then he accepted, and he came, and he said, so this is, but he did something else. What else did he do? Effulgence, that's right. He flashed a time. I mean, the whole Brahma Jyoti is coming from Krishna and from the spiritual world. But he just flashed, and they could see, oh, Namo Narayan. So that was just a tiny little bit of his mystic potency. But then actually, when you think about it, no matter how much mystic potency Lord Sri Krishna displays, it's never anything more than a tiny spark of his splendor. Ekam Shenasti Torjagat, or what is it, the other one? Yajat Vimuktimat Sarvam Srimad Ujitam Evava Tata Devagajata Mama Teja Amsha. It's just an Amsha of his Tejas, of his potency, as Krishna mentions in chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada himself points that out. He says, well, why only 16,108 wives? Just that is, more than heroic. It's like we say in modern English, what do we say? Off the scale. It's just like, who could compete? Just in Kali Yuga, you could maintain one wife. You're a great hero. That's even there in the predictions of Kali Yuga, that if a man can just maintain one wife and family, he'll be considered a great personality if he can just do that. It's getting like that more and more. So Prabhupada would say, why only 16,000 women? In other words, he's the husband of all the women in the universe. Why only 16,100 men? So all these things are just very... Krishna tones it down, even when it seems amazing. And it is amazing. He's God, by the way. So now in text 46, regarding his childlike playful mood, in this case, in subduing the bulls, this is the case in point, that he subdued the bulls just like a child is playing with toy bulls. Sometimes you see those old-fashioned toys where a child has a little rope and there's a bull or a cow, and you pull the rope and it has little wheels, and bulls don't have wheels, but so it makes it roll, and the child doesn't mind the lack of realism. Children have great imaginations, So Krishna was subduing these bulls, just like playing with them, like that. So there are other wonderful examples. Which one did I pick here? Oh yeah, maybe the most prominent example is we hear in a chapter, and this kind of ties into the last part of today's discussion about the existence, the fact that yes, he actually exists. God, Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. There's a chapter in Krishna book called Wonderful Krishna, and it's kind of a summary of Krishna's pastimes, at least up to that point. And one of the pastimes mentioned was Deve Varshati Jagya Viplavaruso. I'm drawing a blank. But there's one line in it where it says, Utpatyaiva Kardena Shailam Abalo Lilo Chilindra Yata. So this is has the word abalo, just like a child, just like a young child picks up what Prabhupada calls it an old-fashioned term for a mushroom. It's it's like an elf's, what is it? What do you call those in Ireland? You have those leprechaun, they call leprechaun. It was something like, there's another name for that. Umbrella, the umbrella of a little dwarf's umbrella. This is a very poetic name for a mushroom. So just like a little child may pick up a mushroom to play with it, Lord Sri Krishna picked up Govardhan Hill. Lilo Chilindra Yata. Abalo Upatyaiva Karena in his hands. Upatyaiva, he lifted up Upatyaiva Karena. Shailam, the hill. Abalo, the like a young child. This is a great example, I think, of Krishna's playful mood as he does these things. Now in text 47, this can get into some really oh, I love it, controversial territory, so I'm not going to go too far with this, and we don't have time either. My plan was to take a quote from a very, very great well-wisher of our society by the name of Thomas Hopkins, who was with Srila Prabhupada for hours in 1966. And actually, he's still around. After all these years, he's still in the same body, more or less. And he wrote the preface to Brahmananda's, and actually it was written by Satyaraj, but a lot of quotes from Brahmananda called Acharya. Better late than never, this book came out of Brahmananda Prabhu's very extensive association with Srila Prabhupada and another oral history of our movement. And he wrote the preface to it, Thomas Hopkins. So, why am I talking about Thomas Hopkins? You'll see in a moment, you'll hear in a moment, that this term in text 47 could be taken as a fertile term. This vidivat, that that Krishna acted in accordance with the Vedic prescriptions, and also, quote, in the proper Vedic fashion, as mentioned in the purport. There's a certain irony to this, because we're dealing with the same personality. And I was going to read this quote from Thomas Hopkins, so let me just paraphrase it, and with apologies to Professor Hopkins, because I'm not getting exactly verbatim. This was actually quoted in Tamal Krishna Goswami's work, a beautiful work, which was completed, whatever little bit was not completed, was completed by Garuda Prabhu, our god brother, Sanskritist, and Satyaraj Prabhu, the prolific writer. The book is called Bhakti Yoga, Living Theology of Bhakti Yoga, something like that, and it's available also as a Kindle book. It's a great glorification of Prabhupada, because it brings us right inside into the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada, what he had to come up with, and it glorifies, very properly glorifies, that we take for granted phrases like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know, it's a common term, but it didn't exist before Srila Prabhupada came up with that translation of Krishna Bhakti, Krishna Bhava, what is it? Krishna Bhakti Bhava Bhavitamati, the Krishna consciousness, that's in Padma Purana, or other terms that describe Krishna consciousness. How to translate that into English? So the very term Krishna consciousness is Prabhupada's creation, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tamal Krishna Goswami really got into that and showed the ingenuity of that term, how it combines the divinity of Krishna as long as his majestic, the fact that he's God, with the personality, with all the personal exchanges he's capable of. So in that book, there's a quote from Thomas Hopkins, and in essence what it's saying is that he referred to him as Swami Bhaktivedanta. He said Swami Bhaktivedanta, he was very, very concerned that the teachings of Krishna consciousness be presented with its cultural tradition, because he was very concerned that without the cultural tradition, I think you may have said full, or the full cultural tradition, then the teachings, if they were put in a different cultural context, like a purely Western, Western cultural context, that the teachings would easily become convoluted, was the word he used, which means distorted or confused or changed. So now you might say, well, wait a second, he's not an initiated devotee, he's not authority. Well, it's just a suggestion. He was, still is a great friend of the Krishna conscious movement. His area of study is a professor in Vaishnavism, specifically, maybe even Gaudiya Vaishnavism. I mean, he really went very, very deeply into all the knowledge. Is he chanting Hare Krishna? Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, it's something we can take it for what it's worth. And I mention that because it's not that Krishna, it just happens to be from India or something, and he's practicing this culture, but he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if that's the culture that Krishna is very carefully following in terms of the etiquette, in terms of the style, not that we can imitate, especially being in the Western world, we can't artificially, do everything in the style of the Vedic culture. But and in Kali Yuga, certainly we shouldn't practice it completely, like the sati right. It became a forced issue, or if you steal something in Vedic culture, the king would chop off the hands of the thief. That sounds barbaric, doesn't it? But guess what, folks? Very, very few people got their hands cut off. Why is that? Because hardly anyone would steal anything. It's it worked so well. You can leave something in the street and it'll be there. So anyway, that's a whole area. Now the last point, and is the last part, which I should have left more time for. I'm sorry. Is just I'll just run through quickly some theological arguments. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There are 5 classical arguments for the existence of God, and I don't have time to run through them. Like chapter 26 was called Wonderful Krishna, but is he really too good to be true? Are we just imagining, projecting our ideal of the perfect personality and creating all these stories? Now, I know we're not. That sounds almost blasphemous to suggest it. But an outsider might think that, for sure. So I came up with my own argument, and this, I know this sounds very presumptuous, so please forgive me. But one argument is that it's kind of like actually related to an argument that Prabhupada would give is that there has to be some greatest. Well, Prabhupada said in terms of wealth. He says, you may be richer than your neighbor, he may be richer, you may be richer than me, but somebody who possesses all wealth, and actually is all wealth, that is God. And Prabhupada was talking to some professors in Los Angeles, and now you know God. He was joking with them. They laughed. And so related to that argument is this idea, say in this planet, in this world, there's got to be somebody who's the greatest. Like in boxing, Muhammad Ali said, I'm the greatest. It was his famous proclamation. Cassius Clay, actually Bhakti-tirtha Swami, he was one of the many famous personalities that Bhakti-tirtha Swami kind of connected with. Muhammad Ali was one of his buddies, I guess, friends that he preached to. So, but there must be, I mean, just by logical, who could deny that if you went through this whole planet, we may not be able to find them, we not know you may not know who it is, but we have to be able. There has to exist somewhere in this world someone who is the greatest, say, in the 6 opulences. Isn't it? Yes or no? We may not know who it is. There must be someone in this world who's the greatest. Now maybe disciples of a particular guru will say, Guru Maharaj, that's nice mood. But even like from a very, very objective, universal sense, yes or no? There must be someone who's the greatest. Okay, no one says, he's the greatest on this planet, but that doesn't mean he's God. Of course it doesn't mean he's God. He's just the greatest on this planet. But if we extend to all the planets and all the galaxies and all the nebula, then in everything, in material and spiritual worlds, if you believe in that, then there must be someone who's the greatest of everyone. And then it would be difficult not to call that person God. Although our theology and Krishna consciousness go beyond that he's just comparatively greater, but that he's all greatness itself. Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Okay, but then one will say, well, that may be true, but that doesn't have any relevance, because it would take, I was just reading somewhere that it would take some millions of years by our own ability in space to go to Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star. It would take us millions of years just to get to the closest star with our, rockets. So it's irrelevant. We don't have any connection with these other planets. I mean, what's to speak of the whole universe and all the universes? But that's not true. If this person is the greatest of everything, then he doesn't depend upon your jet engines and your rockets. He has much, much better way of traveling. He can travel by some mystic way. He could be right next to you right now. In fact, he's probably omnipresent. So anyway, that's one way. So that we could, that it's not that we don't have access. We don't have access to that greatest person, but that greatest person has access to us. Anyway, whatever it's worth. Another is the cosmological argument, the cause of all causes. That's also a classical argument. Avoiding infinite regress, and a wholesome antidote to Hawking madness. We're hearing a lot about this idea that these classes here in these days were saying that everything comes from nothing. This is Stephen Hawking's rather preposterous proposal, that everything comes from nothing. So a much more wholesome and more digestible and plausible understanding of the origin of everything is that it comes from a source which is more opulent, more complex, more sophisticated, more elegant than everything that we see in the world. And modern science, yes, is discovering more and more and more and more and more complexity and elegance and the molecular machinery in these bodies and the fine-tuning of the universe. This is undeniable. You can be the biggest atheist in the world, and you can't deny that practically every year they're discovering almost new dimensions of amazing, amazing, mind-boggling complexity in nature. So how could the source of all that be just an explosion or be nothing, as they're proposing? So to avoid so we need to have a cause of all causes, not just the cause of all causes, nothing. So to avoid an infinite regress, this is a classical argument, then you have to come to sarva karana karanam, as we say. You have to come, as Lord Brahma said, you have to come to the cause of all causes, which is Krishna. And another aspect is we're hearing about these amazing mystical powers of Krishna. He is Yogeshvara, and how he does these amazing, wonderful things, wonderful Krishna. So that may seem, well, that's mythology, but that doesn't work anymore. One would have to be very old-fashioned to try to use that argument. Why is that? Because modern science has now become obliged to recognize the paranormal. On the one hand, there's a lot of empirical evidence. Both Sariputta Prabhu and especially Jutta Karma Prabhu in his book called Human Devolution, he has whole chapters going into incredible detail, documenting so much evidence of paranormal phenomenon and mystic powers that people have, like remote viewing and causing objects to move and so many things that people do. And this is all just suppressed, all this evidence, but now modern science is with quantum mechanics and expanding universe and all these things and Big Bang, that they've, in order to uphold or to try to support their rather amazing theories, now they're forced to acknowledge the paranormal. Now they're forced to acknowledge parallel worlds. They're forced to acknowledge multi-dimensional reality. They're forced to acknowledge all these things. And they have the mathematics now to try to express it mathematically. I'm not saying that their theories are valid, because they've gone way off beyond observational evidence. They're just completely speculating. But it's ironic, strange bedfellows, modern scientists now on the same page with a lot of what we hear about in Krishna book and our literatures. Another argument, and the easiest to accept and the most simplest, is the argument from design. And it's interesting, an avowed atheist, but a very sharp guy, who is considered probably one of the most famous philosophers of the 20th century, Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell, in his book, The History of Philosophy, he acknowledges that this is a really good argument, the argument from design. And since he acknowledged that, it's become even stronger because of the incredible complexity that's observed in nature. That this just couldn't happen by chance, folks. It doesn't work like that. There had to be a design. There had to be a plan to make the bodies work the way they do, to make the universe work the way that there is a universe, that there's a moon, that all these conditions necessary for life, and then the so-called evolution of organism and species. For this to work, it has to be designed. Even if you say, okay, mutations. So say, okay, mutations happen. We won't deny that there's such a thing as mutations. But how did just the right mutation occur, just at the right time, that there could be survival for most mutations are not helpful. They're harmful to the organism. But just this mutation that gives it an edge over and on. How did all this happen so that it developed and one species transformed into another and all that? This is Krishna. If he did it through mutations, if that's the model of mutations and that's your way of understanding, that's fine. You can show evidence for that. That's okay. But that it all, the right mutation happened just at the right time, there's Krishna. So anyway, these are some arguments. Maybe I didn't express it so well this morning, but these are arguments, and there are other arguments, of course, that it's not that wonderful Krishna is some mythology or something like that. Wonderful Krishna is certainly unlimitedly, just so inspiringly wonderful. And that's why we have that chapter in Krishna book called Wonderful Krishna. So thank you for your kind attention. We still have just a few minutes. Anyone would like to contribute something? Yes, Prabhu. What is your good name? Oh, you're Bhakti Charles. And you're from England? Okay. All right. I'm sorry we revolted against you, but that was a long time ago.
Right, we're all cousins. Anyway, that argument, that comment about design. I mean, I would sort of characterize that as the cop-out argument. I mean, just because we can't figure it out, or the idea is that we can't figure it out, so therefore it has to be created by something else. I mean, that doesn't prove anything, as far as I can see. I mean, just because and this is just the current state of knowledge, and we've only been messing around with science for 200 years or something, so give them another 1,000 years or something, who knows whether they may be able to figure it out.
Post-dated blank check. In the future will come. I was arguing with a close relative of mine about consciousness, and he said, I'm an avowed materialist, and I'm not going to change. So I said, what about consciousness? How can you explain the phenomenon of consciousness? And because he's very deeply involved with brain science. So he's saying that it may not happen in my lifetime. They'll definitely discover how consciousness is a function of the brain, how consciousness is just a byproduct of neural connections in the brain. And we're working on it. So that's one aspect. The other is that there's a Back to Godhead magazine about 3 years ago on the 150th anniversary of Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin and the 200th anniversary of the birth of Charles Darwin. It was a great year for the Darwinians. So, sorry about that, folks. So the thing is that in one article in the magazine is about intelligent design. Intelligent design is very closely related to design argument, okay? So in that argument, in that article, it was pointed out that we don't say, the materialists say, the ordinary people say, atheists say, that there is a way of determining whether or not something was designed or not. And that's if the purpose is so specific and the components of it come together in such a way, in such a logical way, that it's just beyond chance. In other words, you can say everything's possible, but if it's like one in a zillion, no respectable scientist is going to accept that, well, maybe it happened by chance. You see what I'm saying? I mean, if the odds go so low, then you can't invoke chance. And they don't do it, so why should we let them do it when it comes to God? You see, let me finish the point. So they give examples, like archaeologists. We're not talking about theists or religious people. We're talking about just geologists and archaeologists. When they find paleoliths, when they find objects in the ground, they see, is it Is it a result of chance geological, transformations in the earth, friction and this and that, metamorphosis or different ways rocks are formed? Or was it designed? Is this a spearhead from an ancient culture and it was left buried in the ground? So you see, they have a way of determining. Or in forensic investigations, was the man pushed off the cliff, or did he just fall off, or how did it? They have ways of finding out. Is it designed? Was it deliberate, or is it just by chance? So that same basic logic can also be applied to the functions of the body, on the bodies of different organisms, or the fine-tuning of the universe. In other words, when something is so sophisticated, so coordinated, so elegantly, has so many interacting functions to fulfill a specific purpose, how in the 4 billion years supposed history of this earth, or even of the universe, 9 billion years, they say, it's not so much. How could that happen by chance? They say, by any ordinary common sense with some arithmetic, you can say, probability, you can see it just doesn't work. So we're talking, we're not just, it's not just wishful thinking on our part. The same rigorous exercise of, is it like looking at signals from outer space, radio signals, is it by chance? They have it, they're doing that now, just in case there's some life somewhere far away and they're trying to communicate with us. There are projects like that. And if it's too much of a pattern, and it's showing a pattern very, very specific, then they know that this doesn't happen by chance. They just know it. It's common sense. Is that all right? Or you don't accept this argument?
I could continue this discussion, but we don't have time. So.
Oh, all right. That's very, very correct of you. All right, so we used up all the time. Oh, Madan Mohan. Oh, Krishna Keshava. He's the temple commander, so he can go overtime. He can reset the timing. Oh, no, you're just putting it away. All right, he is the temple commander. Mataji. Okay, this will be the last question, the last comment. And I'll answer very briefly, I promise. I'm not crossing my fingers.
I don't know if it's out of the subject of the class, but it's a question that I have, and maybe you can give me some...
It's a question you had over the weekend or something?
Always.
You've always had this question. What's the question?
Yes, I know even know how to do this question, but I don't understand. There's, like Bhagavad Gita said, there's two natures. The demons are the divine
nature and the demoniac nature.
And they said in the past they were living the demons in other planets, and now
in the same body we have the demoniac nature and the divine nature. Yeah.
Am I the demon trying to convert myself into a devotee, or is the demon energy living in my body? And I don't understand really.
Well, I don't know you. I don't think you're a demon, but it's just a warning to us that that there used to be that cartoon many years ago before you were born. But they had these cartoons, and they'd show in one ear there was a devil whispering something, and the other ear there was like a little angel whispering something. It was like a tug of war. Who's going to gain control of our soul? Who's going to gain control of our consciousness? So in Kali Yuga, it's like that. The lower modes of nature are quite prevalent. Passion and ignorance, and when you get passion and ignorance together, that creates often a demoniac mindset. So because the modes of nature, the lower modes, are so common in Kali Yuga, it's natural that the demoniac mentality kind of influences us. And yet, at the same time, we are spirit souls. We're part and parcels of Krishna, so we also have our divine nature, especially if we go deeply enough. But even in terms of our behavior and our regular thought patterns, we tend to fall prey to each of these. So in your particular case, or in all of our cases, we don't have to think that we're demons and we're trying to become devotees. We just have to be careful, because sometimes the demoniac mentality even overtakes members of the Krishna consciousness movement and causes great havoc, you might say. So we have to be very, very careful for ourselves and for others. In previous ages, it was a little easier because the demons are more defined. This is a demon. But in Kali Yuga, everybody's kind of mixed together. We have many natures together. So, and we don't have any more time, but I hope that was a little helpful. Ojalá que esto le ayudó un poquito. No tengo más tiempo, lamentablemente. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Questioning, if I'm being offensive, you mentioned